In Chapter 1, Section 6, we'll be working with real numbers more by multiplying and dividing them. So we're going to be practicing a lot of multiplying and dividing positives and negatives. The key concepts are, if you're going to multiply or divide, it works for both operations, numbers with the same sign, the answer is always going to be positive. So for example, positive 5 times positive 2, those are both the same sign. So that means that the answer is going to be positive. Same is true for if I have negative 5 and negative 2 are both the same signs, the answer is going to be also positive. So it doesn't matter what the sign is, as long as they're the same, you're going to get a positive answer. For multiplying numbers with different sign, the answer is always going to be negative. For example, if I have 3 times negative 6 to do, I have a positive and I have a negative, so they're different signs, which means I'm going to get a negative answer. If I have negative 3 and positive 6, those are different signs as well. When I multiply or divide them, I'm going to get a negative answer. So those are the rules in a nutshell. It works the same way for either multiplication or division, so it doesn't matter, and that makes it really easy to remember. So let's try example 1. We're going to multiply and or divide, starting with negative 9 times negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive because they are the same sign. That means that the answer is positive. 9 times 4 is 36. Number 2. 5 times negative 2/3. I have to think about 5 as a fraction. I'm going to multiply it by negative 2/3. I know my answer is going to be negative. I just need to figure out what. 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 3 is 3. I've got negative 10/3, which is an acceptable answer. Or I could simplify it to negative 3 1/3. Both are acceptable possible answers. 12 divided by negative 4. I have a positive and a negative. That means they're different signs. Then I know my answer is going to be negative. And 12 divided by 4 is 3, so it's negative 3. Finally, negative 12 divided by negative 4. They are the same sign, so when I divide them, I'm going to get a positive answer, and 12 divided by 4 is again 3. Okay, so you try. We're going to multiply negative 2/3 times 3/4. Is it A, negative 1/2, B, negative 6/10, C, 1/2, or D, 3/5? Go ahead and pause and try now. For more practice with those problems, you're going to do page 41, numbers 1 through 12 all. Example 4, we're going to be simplifying with the exponents, powers, and bases. So negative 3 raised to the 4th power, remember that root, or that caret we call it, is to the power of. Literally, that's exactly what that means. So negative 3 to the power of 4 means you're going to take 3 and raise it to the power of 4, so 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, with a negative on the outside. This is because negatives are basically, anytime you have a negative, it's negative 1 times that number. So when you have negative 3 to the power of 4, it's negative 3 to the 4th power like this, which means it's exponents first. And then after you multiply that out, you multiply negative 1 times that. So the answer is negative 81. If I had negative 3 to the 4th power with a negative 3 inside parentheses, that's a different order of operations, because that means I'm going to take negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So the negative is distributed, or it's in each parenthesis. In that case, I've got a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and I've got another negative and a negative, which is a positive, and two positives make another positive. So I would have positive 81. So try this one. Simplify negative 0.3 raised to the 2nd power. Remembering that, as a hint, if you have 0.5 times 0.7, for example, when you multiply 5 times 7, you get 35. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 0 and 0, those are all zeros, so it would be this, but I would have to take out a decimal twice, and that means I would have 2 decimals in. My answer would be 0.35. So try that one. And the possible answers are A, 0.9, B, negative 0.09, C, negative 0.9, or D, 0.09. For more practice, please do page 41, numbers 32 through 39. Example 7, we're going to be evaluating, which means we're going to be plugging it in. We're going to be evaluating x divided by y if x is negative 3/4 and y is negative 5/2. So we start out by writing the expression out, x divided by y. I color-coded it for convenience because we're going to plug in x and plug in y. So in place for x, we're going to have negative 3/4, and in place of y, we're going to have negative 5/2. Remember, you always need to have parentheses around whatever you plug in. After you set that up, flip and multiply. So instead of negative 3/4 times divided by negative 5/2, it's now negative 3/4 times negative 2/5. Flip and multiply means you flip, and then multiply. KFC represents keep it, flip it, change it, and that's what I was trying to do at the beginning. Keep the first one, flip the second one, and change the sign. Either which way, you're going to get negative 3/4 times negative 2/5. Then what you're going to do is multiply across and simplify. Negative 3/4 times negative 2/5. Negative times negative is positive. It'd be 6/20. And then in that case, I could simplify. Divide the top and the bottom by 2. I got 3/10 or 0.3. So it's your turn. Evaluate x divided by y if x is 8 and y is negative 4/5. And the hint that you get is thinking that 8 is actually a fraction. You can always write anything as a fraction if you put it over 1. Is it A, 2/5, B, 10, C, negative 10, or D, negative 2/5? Okay, for more practice on problems like that, it's page 42, numbers 54 through 57. And that's it for Algebra 1, Chapter 1, Section 6.